looking at the issues that directly related to election 2016, there are two that stand out. The need and proposals to reform the Electoral College, and we'll talk about why that's important, and maintaining the integrity of elections in the internet age. The question is, to what extent does a discrepancy between the popular vote and the Electoral College tally affect the president's mandate and legitimacy? Now, normally that isn't an issue, but here we have a situation where for the second time in less than 20 years, going back to Bush v. Gore, there was a mismatch between the popular vote and the electoral vote. In other words, the winner of the Electoral College lost the popular vote. In this recent election, by nearly 3 million votes, undercutting the legitimacy of the election process and sparking a debate over the future of the Electoral College. Now, a similar pair of outcomes last occurred more than a century ago in the 1876 Hayes-Tilden election and the 1888 Harrison-Cleveland election. In each case, the winner in the Electoral College lost the popular vote. Now, if this was to reoccur in 2020 or 2024, the pressure for Electoral College reform would substantially increase. We have to ask ourselves a basic question. Why are U.S. presidents elected through an Electoral College instead of by popular vote? Those of you that remember Barack Obama's coming on the political stage in the 2004 Democratic Convention in Boston, he said, we're not just a collection of red states and blue states, we're the United States. But what he didn't say is that we're a union of states. And that's made all the difference. The priority for the Founding Fathers, and let's remember, the U.S. gained its independence in 1776, fought up until 1781. A Treaty of Peace was signed in 1783. Between 1783 and 1789, the country, in quotes, was governed by Articles of Confederation, which were a very loose association of states. It wasn't working out. There was no strong central government. So the Founding Fathers held a constitutional convention, and at that point, they were New Yorkers, they were Virginians, they were Pennsylvanians, they were just Americans in a very general sense, in a very vague sense. They decided to create a government, a strong federal government, with three branches: a presidency, a Congress, and a judiciary. That was a radical idea in 1789. There were no presidents. Royalty was all the rage. In fact, they offered Washington a kingship, he declined. So, in lieu of that, they created a presidency. But at the same time, they wanted to retain the power to choose the occupant of the highest office as a way of maintaining the balance between the states and the untested United States. And they did this by voting by state for the chief executive. Initially, by the state legislature. Later on in the 19th century, that process was opened up to popular participation. So we're basically stuck with this arrangement as a consequence of the fact that the United States is a union of states. And remember, 1789 should ring a bell. The Bastille, heads rolled, and the United States proved to be the exception, and we'll discuss why. So, we want our president to have legitimacy, and if the Electoral College and the popular vote aren't in sync, that is a fundamental flaw in the system. So, we were able to slough it off for over a century, because the disconnect had not occurred between the popular vote and the electoral college vote. But now we may be moving into a situation where we have to think seriously about it. Should we abolish it? Well, to abolish it would take a constitutional amendment, and that requires the approval of 3/4 of the states. That's unlikely, because there are certain states that benefit from the way the structure is set up now. There's been a proposal to have the states vote in conformity with the popular vote, so all of the electoral college votes would swing to the candidate that won the majority of the popular vote. I don't think that will happen because it kind of defeats the purpose of one man, one vote. What you could do is move to a proportional representation, so electoral votes, rather than being tallied on a winner-take-all basis by each state, to have it by just divided, as many states have done in their primaries. And of course, you can muddle through and hope that the votes are between the electoral college and the popular vote conform to each other. Now, one of the reasons that the current system is liable to remain is because states are in a preferred position, and they benefit economically and politically from having the spotlight shined on them. In the primary process, New Hampshire and Iowa are right up there in terms of first primary and first caucus in the nation, and swing states bask in political spotlight during the in close elections. Another thing that we learned this cycle is that the electors who represent the two-party slates in the states are, in many cases, not required by law to vote for the winner. So we have the case of the faithless elector. And there were 7, in this election, although there were 538 electors, 7 of them elected to cast their ballots for a candidate other than the one that won the election in their states. So that's interesting. It's still just 1% of the total. Now, the Electoral College was intended to be a filter so that an undesirable person who had perhaps authoritarian tendencies would be denied the office just on the basis of the way the electors subjectively evaluated him, rather than on the basis of the number of the votes that he gained in the state. Now, it's possible that I think somebody such as Trump, who had never held elected office, the potential for faithless electors were probably as high as they could possibly have been. And those are some of the people who the electors voted for, other than the candidates to which they were pledged. There were also some rumblings of vote your conscience, because that's the way the Hamilton advocated. Okay. Now, the Electoral College does have some advantages, and it forces candidates to demonstrate their political credentials by running a 50-state marathon. Endurance, grit, determination, stamina. You remember during the debates, Trump pillory Hillary for not having the stamina required. He's got a lot of stamina to get up at 6 in the morning and tweet. Command of the issues, organizational skill. These are the qualities that the electorate looks for in the commander-in-chief. The second area of concern with respect to election 2016 was the integrity of the election process itself. This is the first time that a foreign power has intervened in the, not in the casting of votes, but by hacking into the website of the Democratic National Committee and then leaking information that was harmful to Hillary Clinton. The Russian government has violated the sovereignty of the United States. And to my way of thinking, it's really a casus belli. It's an act of war. It's political rape, if you will. And that is the consensus of all the intelligence agencies. There was a potential for a compromise in the voting itself in those states that didn't have a paper trail that went along with their computers, but that didn't appear to be the modus operandi. It was a campaign of disinformation and compromat and disinformazione, which is standard practice in Russia in political issues. Now this is under congressional investigation. Attorney General Sessions just recused himself from supervising the investigation. And the open question is whether members of the Trump campaign were openly colluding with Russian officials, and not just providing information as to campaign positions and so forth, as all foreign governments are likely to do during a campaign, as they try and assess what changes in policy will result. All I can say is stay tuned. Thank you. Did that go over 10 minutes?